Trooper Michael Proctor. The Commonwealth withheld from the grand jury clear and even more egregious conflicts of interest as they pertain to Michael Proctor. Sergeant Lank was aware of this irremediable conflict that Canton Police Department had and that he should have had with the Alberts. So what does he do? He calls in Massachusetts State Police. And who do they send but Michael Proctor? And that's like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. That's the same Michael Proctor who's also years-long close family friends with the Alberts. The Proctors have called the Alberts their, quote, second family.
Alan Jackson making the arguments in the Karen Reed case. You know which case I'm talking about. Karen Reed, the one who comes to the courthouse and has fans cheering for her. She's accused of murdering a Boston police officer. It was her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. She's claiming she's being framed by police. And now I think some more bad news potentially here for prosecutors in this case involving Proctor. Who is Proctor? He's the lead investigator in this case. Take a look at the statement that Court TV received from the Massachusetts State Police. We have opened an internal investigation into a potential violation of department policy by Trooper Michael Proctor. Trooper Proctor remains on full duty. Please note that we are not stating whether the potential violation relates to a specific case, nor are we specifying the nature of the alleged violation. That's a problem. That's a problem, folks. Either way, take a listen again to Alan Jackson, the attorney for Karen Reed, outlining some of the things involving Trooper Proctor in this case.
Newly uncovered text messages, but from the feds, revealed that on January 19th, 2022, think about that date, that's 10 days before the incident. January 19th, 2022, Michael Proctor texted his own family members discussing the specifics of having Julie Albert babysit for his toddler child. On February 1st, 2022, 3 days after John O'Keefe was killed, there was another text message. In this one, Michael Proctor's sister texts Michael Proctor very specifically and writes the following, quote, "Just saw Julie, and Julie said when all this is over, she wants to give you, Michael Proctor, a thank you gift." Michael Proctor didn't respond with, "That's inappropriate, these are witnesses, these are potential suspects, please tell her don't ever do that again, don't ever suggest an exchange of gifts again, that would be inappropriate. I'm gonna go write a report, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Lally, and Mr. Lally's gonna turn that information over to the defense and to the court." No, that's what he should have done. What he did do is he responded, "Get Elizabeth one," his wife. In other words, get the gift from my wife, it'll be a little less obvious. So now we have the lead investigator from Massachusetts State Police literally discussing the exchange of gifts between the Albert family on the one hand and the Proctor family on the other hand as a thank you, their words, for helping the Alberts out of a jam. Under additional intense questioning by the Assistant United States Attorney, Proctor was caught in his own web of deceit and testified as follows, quote, this is the AUSA talking, or asking the question. "So obviously we're asking questions about your relationship with Julie Albert, with Chris Albert, and with Colin Albert. Do you understand that?" Answer, "Yes, sir." Question, "And you're saying that you're minimizing, quote, minimizing your relationship to the grand jury, correct?" Answer, "Yes." He finally, under the scrutiny of a federal grand jury, admitted that he had been lying about his relationship to the Alberts, which means he lied to the grand jury, which means that evidence was distorted in front of the grand jury.
Oh, get ready, folks. We got hearings on March 20th, hearings on March 26th, and don't forget this trial begins on April 16th, right here on your front row seat to justice. Let's bring back in the think tank, Philip Dubé, Kirk Nurmi, Andrea Lewis. Kirk, so we've got the feds investigating the investigators, right? We know about that with the grand jury. And now an internal investigation of the lead investigator. Now, this is going from bad to worse right now for prosecutors.
You bet. I mean, the Commonwealth has really bungled this, whether this is a conspiracy or bungled, I don't know. But everything that the defense has said and has proffered has really proven to be true, right? And now we're talking about bribes, possible bribes, gifts, what have you. We don't know if that's what the investigation is about, but now if this case ever gets to trial, and I don't know if it's about justice for John O'Keefe anymore for the Commonwealth versus proving themselves right and being able to convict Karen Reid, this lead investigator is going to face the scrutiny and the crucible of cross-examination about this entire investigation. His honesty, everything he did in this case will be questioned because of the potential dishonesty. And the state police isn't going to open an investigation just because they're mildly suspicious. You know, defense attorneys might have suspicions about what's going on between prosecutors and officers because they work together a lot. But this is something different. This is next level. This is going to have reports which this investigator can be confronted with and confronted with vigorously.
Andrea Lewis, I'm generally skeptical about allegations of being framed, right? I mean, really, how many times have we seen that? Not many in the history of I don't know if we've ever seen it in the history of court TV. But anyway, is this about reasonable doubt, or is this about actually uncovering a conspiracy and a police plot to frame Karen Reid?
This is a mess. And as a prosecutor, the last thing that you want in your case is for your lead investigator, the person who's going to have to come before the jury and explain how the investigation unfolded, what evidence they found. There's a trust factor there. The last thing you want is for them to be caught up in some type of a drama with the witnesses in your case and other key individuals. This is terrible for the prosecution, and it really jeopardizes the investigation as a whole.
Philip Dubé, what's going on here? Are we uncovering an actual conspiracy, or is this a defense team being very vigorous and finding reasonable doubt everywhere?
Well, they found some juicy nuggets to raise reasonable doubt, frankly, if we're really honest about it. But if I were the prosecutor on this case, how you combat it is you bring all that stuff out on direct. You ask him about those texts. You ask him what he meant by giving his wife a gift. And in the end, the jury just might accept it as idle small talk, you know, not to be taken seriously. And while it may have been untoward and may have looked a little smarmy and unctuous, he did nothing to compromise the investigation. So that's how you deal with it. Now, on the other hand, juries don't like it. You know, you're the lead investigator. You're held to a high standard. You're there to uphold not just Massachusetts law, but U.S. Supreme Court law. You cannot sit on exculpatory evidence, for example. You cannot manufacture evidence, and you certainly cannot conspire with other people to try to convict a defendant. It's that David and Goliath effect, and juries tend to be sympathetic to that.
Kirk, did you see what just happened? Philip Dubé on this program just gave advice to the prosecution.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, and it's good advice, frankly, but I don't think it's going to satiate the jury, as he indicated, because not only whatever he says on the stand and whatever authority he has as a police officer, guess what? The defense can bring in the Massachusetts State Police, who are investigating him, and shed further light on it and have that authority behind them, as well as federal officials. That's why we have reasonable doubt in this case. It makes it seem impossible to me that she's ever going to be convicted, and why the Commonwealth keeps going forward and beating their head against the wall is confusing to me.
Andrea Lewis, do you think the truth comes out inside this courtroom?
Well, they'll certainly try, but I think that this kind of the sideshow that now is surfacing, it may overtake that, and you know, the truth is probably going to be buried in there somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some pleas that came out of this, or a last-minute attempt to try to resolve these charges, given what we're hearing now.
Yeah. I just don't know, though, because prosecution, defense, they do not like each other right now. Not at all. It's not, I don't even think it's a show. I think it's personal at this moment, but we shall see.